The reason we wrote that op-ed was to debunk the myth that the biggest issue we're facing is a labor shortage. My name is Marcy Goldstein Gelb. I'm co-executive director of the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health, known as National COSH. So I'll take you back just a little bit. I became involved as a volunteer with a community newspaper that was drawing attention to key issues facing the community. And many workers were taking action and organizing for their rights. And we were capturing these stories of immigrant workers bravely coming together and speaking up for safety, for their rights, for justice. And I learned about a community organization called Massachusetts Coalition for Occupational Safety and Health, MassCOSH, and I was really just impressed by the approach of really putting workers in the driver's seat, of supporting them as they took action to ensure that their rights and be directly involved in the process. And several years later, I learned of an opening at the organization, and so I joined the staff there. I worked there for at least 15 years. And we were engaged in many different initiatives. We'll talk about some of these later. But after a period of time, when there was a wonderful, terrific team in place at MassCOSH, and we wanted to see new leadership taking over, I then had a conversation with the deputy director at the National COSH, National Council for Occupational Safety and Health, Jessica Martinez. And so we joined forces, and now we are co-directors and work with an amazing team at National COSH. National COSH, which is the Council for Occupational Safety and Health, grew out of a movement of workers, of union activists, and of occupational health professionals who were working together before the 70s to tackle a litany of poor working conditions that were facing workers. And again, I say before the 70s because it was before the Occupational Safety and Health Act was passed in 1970. And so health and safety activists were not only organizing and supporting workers in demanding decent working conditions in the workplaces, they were also pushing for a federal law that would ensure that workers had a right to safe and healthy conditions, and that there was a federal agency charged with enforcement. COSH groups, coalitions for occupational safety and health, began to form officially in the 70s, with the first taking place in Chicago. And the groups, again, were coalitions of workers and allies working together to support organizing and to support engagement in creating strong protections. Now, fast forward from that period of time to 2023, National COSH's mission remains the same. We are the umbrella group of these 26 coalitions, and our mission remains to build the power of workers and their organizations to demand jobs that are safe, healthy, and free from exploitation and abuse. And in addition to our coalitions, our worker groups, we have a broad community that includes members of unions and worker centers, health and safety professionals, and academic specialists that come together to work on opportunities to strengthen worker power. It's called the Protecting Workers Alliance. Unions, as well as their umbrella organizations, the Central Labor Councils, the AFL-CIO, have always been an important part of the COSH movement. We believe, and it's really central to our mission, that the best way for workers to have a strong voice is through a collective bargaining agreement that's available through a union. Without a collective bargaining agreement, without a union, workers are much more vulnerable. So what we do is we want to support workers in moving into the labor movement and becoming unionized. At the same time, we recognize that many, many people are not unionized. So what's unique about COSH is that we are bringing together workers who are not in the labor movement, who are more contingent and more vulnerable, with those that are in the labor movement, more part of organized labor, including, again, those umbrella groups like the AFL-CIO, to unite around that mission of building power for workers. In the South, our Mississippi Worker Center, organizing Black workers in poultry plants and in restaurants and other arenas. In Florida, we count is organizing workers around heat exposure, creating a powerful committee called K-Calor of workers who are pushing both for policy protections at the local and federal level, as well as organizing in workplaces. When I was at COSH, we learned through SEIU, the Service Employees Union, that there were a group of workers who cleaned the subway trains, who were working on the tracks in grave danger of electrocution, who work with dangerous chemicals, many other hazards. And so we partnered with them, and we engaged in collecting surveys and interviews and meeting with workers, bringing them together to share their stories. And as a result of this organizing campaign, the cleaning contractor that was non-unionized was replaced with a union cleaning contractor. And therefore, again, we're ensuring that workers are able to have a strong voice in their working conditions protected by a collective bargaining agreement. That's, again, one of many, many campaigns across the country, but just to give you a sense about how this organizing works. We have several COSH groups that have engaged women in committees to investigate and to take action around sexual harassment, and to demand that there be procedures in place to ensure that workers can be free from harassment and abuse. There's a long history of nurses that have been pushing for safe staffing levels, and have made a very compelling case about how that affects the nurses and patient care. And that's been the case for campaigns, not just in the union sector, but also, I was involved with supporting a campaign of hotel housekeepers who had their workload doubled, and who were taking pain medication just to get through the day. And so they documented their conditions, they pushed to have their workload cut, and in fact, they did win that campaign. We have always viewed workplace safety and health as the intersection of many issues. So, for example, it's the intersection of racial justice, of immigration justice, of health and well-being, and of the environmental justice. And so when it comes to issues related to stress and having a healthy, fulfilling work, that's something that, again, is a part of the work that we do, that when workers come together and organize, that they have a right, the bread and roses. Those roses are about having quality work, of having work that doesn't create enormous toll through stress and through other harms that impact people's bodies. And so we believe that workers deserve to be able to create and be a voice of what conditions are going to make for quality work, and that they should be at the table driving those. The reason we wrote that op-ed was to debunk the myth that the biggest issue we're facing is a labor shortage, and that corporations need to do whatever is possible to bring in whoever with whatever conditions into the labor force. And our point is that there are plenty of people who are seeking to work. They're seeking to work with family-sustaining wages, with decent working conditions. And so rather than, changing and weakening our child labor laws and saying we should just bring in as many young workers to work as many hours as possible, what we should be doing is looking at how can we improve the quality of the jobs that are available so that people want to pursue them, number one. Number two, there are many people who are coming to our country desperate to work and needing to pay their families' expenses. And so we could be fixing our immigration system so that it is easier for people who come to this country to be able to fill jobs. Again, we're not saying they should be filling bad jobs, poorly paid jobs in poor conditions. We're saying create good conditions, make it easy for people to form unions, make it easier for people coming to this country to work. And then for young people, let's create good quality jobs so that they have, first of all, that they can live a healthy, full life, and fulfill their earning potential, but also so that they have good memories of work and not ones in which they've been exploited. So that's really the message of this op-ed. We have incredible worker leaders in our movement who have courageously turned from having an abusive, exploitative situation to saying, I am not going to let anybody else suffer as I did. And they're using their voices and their stories to create change. And so I feel very fortunate that I am able to work with inspiring leaders, people from such a range of backgrounds, joining together and having a shared mission.